الله بسم الله
والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. Today we continue with our book Al-Khushu' fi Salah, Humility in the Prayer by Imam Ibn Rajab, may Allah have mercy on him. And we talked last time about the importance of Khushu' and about the meaning of Khushu', and we stopped in the middle of the section where Ibn Rajab is talking about the meaning of Khushu'. And the next part of this section, Ibn Rajab, he is going to mention some ayahs from the Quran that establish that Khushu' is something that is not only in the heart, but also it is in the speech of the person. It is in how the person looks and sees. It is in the heart as well. So he's going to mention ayahs that express and explain. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explains to us how comprehensive Khushu' is. And this is just like Iman. Because faith itself, Iman, is not just something in the heart. Iman is something that is in the person's actions, on the limbs, in the speech, in the heart. And in the same way, Khushu' is from Iman, so it is the same way. So Ibn Rajab says, Allah Most High has described the earth as having Khushu' in His words, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنَّكَ تَرَى الْأَرْضَ خَاشِعَةً فَإِذَا أَنزَلْنَا عَلَيْهَا الْمَاءَ اهْتَزَّتْ وَرَبَتْ. Among Allah's signs is that you see the earth laid bare, meaning that it's motionless, it's still. And then when we send down water on it, it quivers and it swells, so motion happens. Now Ibn Rajab, he's going to mention with the correlation between the use of the word Khushu' here for the earth when it is still and for the Khushu' of the heart and the limbs. So he says, the meaning of its quivering and swelling, meaning the earth after the water comes down, meaning the motion of the earth, is that its bareness and stillness, Khushu', has been removed. And in its place, vegetation grows. This then shows that the Khushu' that it had was stillness, lowness, and lack of growth. The same applies to the heart. Now he's going to mention, okay, that's the meaning related to the earth. What does it mean? How is this similar to what happens to the heart when Khushu' is there? The same applies to the heart. When it has Khushu', its base desires and thoughts arising from the following of carnal lusts are laid to rest, and it breaks and submits to Allah mighty and magnificent. So your lusts, your shahawat, when you have Khushu', they're put to rest. Just like the earth, when it has Khushu', it is still. Khushu' replaces the heart's remoteness, heftiness, arrogance, and lordliness. When it settles in the heart, the limbs, organs, and motions, even the voice, are stilled. So that's the correlation between the ayah and Khushu', that it is the stillness of all these matters. Allah the Most High has stated that voices have Khushu' in His words, وَخَشَعَتِ الْأَصْوَاتُ لِلرَّحْمَنِ فَلَا تَسْمَعُ إِلَّا هَمْسًا. Voices will be humbled before the All-Merciful, and nothing but a whisper will be heard. So Ibn Rajab, again, he's mentioning these ayahs to us to establish that Khushu' is something that happens to the voice, that happens to the face, as he's going to mention, and to the heart as well. The humility of voices refers to their being stilled and quieted after being clamorous. And of course this is about the disbelievers on the Day of Judgment. And Ibn Abbas is the one that explained with this explanation as mentioned here. In a similar vein, Allah has described the faces and sight of the disbelievers with Khushu' on the Day of Rising. And then the summary in one sentence, he says, this then proves that all of these limbs can have Khushu'. So Khushu', as we mentioned, if we're going to summarize the meaning of Khushu' like we talked about last time, it is something that is in the heart and that is on the limbs as well, on the outside. The next section is something to be careful from, which is, it talks about hypocritical Khushu', hypocritical humility, which is for the person to show that he has Khushu' when in reality in his heart he has no Khushu'. Ibn Rajab says, when a person affects Khushu', displaying it on his limbs, while his heart is devoid of it, he has fallen prey to hypocritical Khushu', Khushu' nifaq. And this is what the Salaf would seek refuge from. One of them would say, take refuge with Allah from hypocritical Khushu'. When asked what it was, he replied, that you see the body humble and submissive while the heart is not. And this is a very comprehensive statement. That the body, it looks like this person, oh, he's such a great salah,
but in the heart there is nothing that is affecting the heart. Umar radiallahu anhu saw a person with his head lowered and said, "O such and such, raise your head, for khushu' does not extend beyond what is in the heart." Because the person, and this is against the sunnah as well. The khushu' is for you to follow the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, to pray the right way. The Prophet ﷺ كَانَ لَا يَشْخَصُ بِبَصَرِهِ وَلَا يُصَلُّ بِالصَّلَاةِ, that he would neither do like this nor like this, but straight. Ibn Rajab says, whoever outwardly displays more khushu' than is present in his heart is guilty of hypocrisy on top of hypocrisy. So here, hypocritical khushu' is for you to show that you are having khushu', but in your heart there is no khushu'. And a person should also not have waswasa, meaning, even if I am in front of people, I should not stop my worship. I should not abstain from worshiping Allah in the proper way. Because I first must have an intention to please Allah and then worship. And if shaitan comes to whisper to me, let him be. And if a person leaves a worship and does not intend to do it later, because of the people, that is also a form of hypocrisy. That is also a form of riyah, which a person should be careful from. Now, so we understood the importance of khushu' last time. We understood generally the meaning of khushu'. Now, how do I get khushu'? How do I achieve khushu' in my life? So Ibn Rajab is going to talk a little bit about this, but the summary of it is that when I know Allah better, I worship Him better and I have more khushu'. So knowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helps us have more khushu'. Knowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's the summary of what Ibn Rajab is going to mention here. And if I were to choose a section from the book that is my favorite, this section would be my favorite section. The source of the khushu' that takes place in the heart is the knowledge of Allah's greatness, magnificence, and perfection. The more knowledgeable a person is of Allah, the more khushu' he has. This is a great comprehensive statement by Ibn Rajab. The more knowledge I have of Allah, the more khushu' I have. The hearts vary in their khushu' in accordance to the knowledge they have of the one they humble to, and in accordance to the hearts witnessing the attributes of Allah that lead to khushu'. And this is the most important topic in Islam, for us to know Allah properly, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because if you know Allah better, you worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala better. Now, perhaps to keep us a little focused maybe, a few brothers, mashallah, here come to that. Lakin, to keep us focused, now Ibn Rajab, he's going to give us examples of this. He's going to mention sifa lillah, an attribute of Allah. And then he's going to mention how the effect of this attribute, what the effect of this attribute is on the heart of the person praying, or the person in his life is, which leads to khushu'. So we'll read the first point, but then after that, I would request perhaps so we stay awake a little bit, maybe we have 5 more minutes or something, we'll be here. That I'll ask, okay, if you could give me an attribute of Allah, and what the effect of that attribute should be. So we're going to mention, Ibn Rajab is going to mention attributes of Allah, so we mention one attribute. And then he'll say, this is what happens to the heart when you witness in your heart this attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we want to know the attribute and the effect it has on the heart. So here Ibn Rajab says, first, some hearts are humbled by the strength of their perceiving His closeness to His slaves and His seeing their innermost secrets. So this is the attribute of Allah. That Allah is close and He sees everything we do. That He is al-Qareeb and He is also al-Basir. But what does that do to my heart? What does that do to me as a slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? This leads to being shy of Him Most High. To having haya. Being shy of Allah. And constantly being aware of Him in every state of motion or stillness. So 2 things are the effects. The attribute was Allah being close. Allah being al-Basir, the all-watchful. And then the effect is me being shy of Allah. Me being watchful of Allah, muraqabatullah. So that's the attribute, and that is the effect it has, which leads to eventually khushu'. A person having khushu'. The second one. And from here on, perhaps you guys can help. Then he says, كيف شيخنا?
Respectfulness. Respectfulness.
Respectfulness.
God, like you prostrate inside, like they say, respect Allah by God standing in front of him.
جميل جميل ما لكم لا ترجون لله وقارا. جميل. Okay, so تقدير جميل, beautiful. طيب, so Ibn Rajab is going to mention 3 more attributes and 3 more actions of the heart that result from these attributes. The second one, some hearts are humbled through their perceiving the magnificence of Allah, His greatness and His grandeur, which leads to being in awe of Him and magnifying Him. So the second point is, Allah is al-Azim, the greatest. So in my heart, I have ta'aleem. I magnify Allah, I glorify Allah. So that's the second. Third one, some hearts are humbled through perceiving His perfection and beauty. And this is so beautiful. Which leads to drowning in the love of Allah and the desire to meet and see Him. So this is the third one. Allah is beautiful. Allah is perfect. Therefore I love Him. Therefore I want to meet Allah. Therefore I want to see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the last one, the fourth one, and after that I'll ask, perhaps you can recall some of them. Some hearts are humbled through perceiving the enormity of His seizure, vengeance, and punishment, which leads to fearing Him. So here we have Allah's punishment, Allah's anger, which leads to fearing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like, could someone repeat perhaps an attribute and an effect of an attribute that Ibn Rajab rahimahullah mentioned? Well, we're not going to push it if, no problem.
You mean the last one maybe?
No problem.
Inferiority of God, like you feel like you're way less than God, so you become humble and you stand as in respect and inferior to God.
Jimmy, like, does anyone else have
Closeness
The
of
grandeur of God.
feel the closeness of Allah. He's close to you.
Jimmy?
You see, so you feel His help and His.
Maybe there's another one in.
Jimmy, so you feel close to Allah, or you feel the closeness of Allah, so you feel shy of Him. You respect Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now,
There's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, يَدْعُونَنَا رَغَبًا وَرَهَبًا. It says they pray to us or they make supplication as they love us, but also they're afraid of us. So He gave us the meaning of what He.
So you guys mentioned some of the things that Ibn Rajab mentioned, you added this one. Very beautiful. So I think, the next attribute that Ibn Rajab is going to focus on, we won't read it, we'll finish with what you guys mentioned, but he's going to talk about what the Walid just mentioned, which is the closeness of Allah. He's going to focus on that and how it affects the person, because a lot of points that come in Salah, for example, in our sujood, together. So he's going to focus on that a little more.